I had an interesting conversation a couple of days ago, actually during a French lesson, and we alternate grammar and syntax and vocabulary with sort of conversational sessions where I'm just kind of throw it all to the wind and try and make sense of things in French. And there are always conversation prompts. And I was talking about a concert last week where the program included some music that I'd written, some piano music. So we talked about that, and then talked about playing piano, practicing piano. And so my teacher, she asked a question. She said, "Is it different to write music or to play music?" And of course it is. It is very different, and it's interestingly different when it's music that I've written. And I try to explain in my very rudimentary French that when I approach a piece of music that I'm writing as a composer, I can, and something doesn't work, I can, and in fact I'm obliged to look at it and change it. Maybe it's not working because the piece is poorly written, or there's something, right? The option to change the piece exists. But as a performer, that option doesn't exist. If something isn't working, it's an execution question. And I have all kinds of options and all kinds of choices. But even if it's a piece that I've written myself, it's a practice, a technique, and an execution question, not a practice, technique, execution question of composition. There has to be that switch that says the piece is the music. It's out there now, and I'm just some other dude playing it. And if I have difficulty with it, I may have difficulty because it's not idiomatic or because there's some section, but kind of tough shit at that point. I've got to, as a performer, try to make the best of it. So that's all very interesting. But then she asked a question that I'd never thought of, and I don't know if I don't know what to think about it. She asked if you could only choose one, right, composition or playing, which would it be? And the answer was surprisingly easy. And I'm not going to keep you in suspense. I'm going to let you know right now that I would choose the ability to play rather than the ability to compose. So there's probably some context or some caveats. In both cases, I think it's important to separate from performance, right? Writing music to be performed and listened to, playing for an audience. Let's assume that that's not going to happen for either of those, that there isn't going to be a performance of the piece that I've written. It's written for the desk drawer, so it's purely the act of composition. And then when I play, I'm not practicing for performance. I'm practicing so that I can play the music I want to play. That may not be a distinction that's going to survive, or it might not be a distinction that's really useful. But just to get it out there, that in this thought experience, there's no performance involved. There's no audience. It's the process myself of writing or playing. We'll come back to it because the answer might be different, or it might be the same. Oh, it will be the same. I think I will always choose playing. And one reason why this is so easy for me to say is I can look at my life, and I'm a firm believer that you do what you want to do. I mean, barring the calamities of life and the tragedies of history and the constraints of the time and place that we're born into. If I want to play, I play, and if I want to write, I write. And there are vast swaths of my life where I have not written. Maybe I wanted to, but I didn't want to enough to do it. Maybe my lack of confidence overcame my desire to write. My faith in the idea itself, couldn't overcome the idea of writing it simply for writing it. If there was no performance, it was hard for me to justify the effort of writing. That is still true. It's easier to finish something when there's a deadline. I do think that in the last couple of years, my connection to the process of writing has changed and has become more authentic and more less fraught, right? More something I would do anyway, regardless of any external impact, import, motivation. But that's been a long time coming and a hard time coming. Whereas for playing, and maybe it's liberating because there was never a sense that I was going to be a concert performer. And even when I was younger, I started too late. Was never good enough. I was plenty good enough for the kinds of things that I wanted to do. I thought I wanted to teach. I was plenty good enough to teach music theory, for example, and even to do some nice concerts in whatever institution decided to hire me. But I didn't need to be a virtuoso. So that pressure was off. And I've always played, even the 20 years when I didn't have a performance, and I still played. So I know just from my behavior that playing is more important than writing. Writing is hard. Playing is hard too, but there's a physiological thrill in playing, the motion of the fingers, that is enormously pleasurable. I get a similar sense of pleasure from a nice fountain pen nib on a piece of paper. A percentage of playing the piano for me is simply how good it feels to move my fingers. Which is good because my ears are shot to hell. I'm deaf in one of them, I'm fractured in the other. It's good that it doesn't matter what it sounds like. It matters what it feels like. So that's the second piece that makes it easy for me to choose. The first is that it's what I've done. When given the option, I've played rather than written. The second is it's immensely pleasurable to play. And the third is I could not live without playing Bach and Messiaen, Beethoven, Prokofiev. There's a handful of composers that I could not process life if I couldn't play them. And it's not the same as listening to them, it's playing them, particularly Bach. But Messiaen as well. The idea that I couldn't participate in the sound in that way, I think would take away my ability to process the difficulties of life, but also the participation in life. I wouldn't die, but I can't imagine a life where I could not sit down and play Bach. I can totally imagine a life where I don't write any music, and in both cases, who knows? But and don't get me wrong, I'm committed to writing some really fucking great music in the next few years. I've got some big ass projects going on, but now the question was surprisingly easy to answer. So, those of you out there who are also composers and performers, let me know. Or writers and players, let me know which one you would choose. Or would you argue? Would you push back to the gods who were demanding that you make this choice? Would you insist that there's a caveat, that there's a way out? or deal that you could make. Uh, I'd probably be okay with it too if I could if I chose playing. I love writing, and um, but I think I prefer improvising.